want to thank everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. We know the Eagles press conference took place on Wednesday afternoon, but then it rained a little bit. There was some traffic. I looked around the room. There were people like really trying to absorb what they saw. So that's why there was a little bit of a delay for this podcast.
Building was closed.
Yeah.
That's good, Dave.
Thank you.
When did you plan that out?
About 15 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's how it started. That's how the presser started.
Yeah, we'll get into all that. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. Reuben, Frank, Dave, Zangaro. We're presented by Nissan. The Eagles held their end-of-year press conference well after the end of the year on Wednesday. Did get some answers, maybe not all the answers fans were looking for. We got some news breaking in the middle of that press conference, which is always fun. We'll start there in a little bit. Overall, though, I thought it was good to finally hear from those guys. Plenty to break down, and it's still going to be a very eventful offseason.
Yeah, it already has been, and it will continue to be that. And everything's going to focus on why the collapse happened and how can we make sure it doesn't happen again. And that started yesterday.
And during the press conference, we find out Vic Fangio splitting ways with the Dolphins, and we'd kind of mentioned him when we were talking about defensive coordinator candidates. And we didn't mention him as a candidate because he wasn't available,
right.
But we
didn't want to tamper.
Yeah, if he becomes available, he'd obviously rise to the top of their list. And he became available and immediately was at the top of their list. That report from Adam Schefter came out during the press conference. And as we record this on Thursday morning, Schefter reports Fangio is he says traveling to Philadelphia. I think we can probably assume he's flying.
He's a big fan of Amtrak.
Rail?
He could be
coming by rail?
Could be coming by... I think he's on the Norfolk Southern.
If he's in Miami, he could be coming by boat.
Could be.
Might take a little while.
Could be.
This is the next delay of a press conference.
It's not a nice day for sailing.
That's true. But in any event, Vic Fangio on his way to sign a contract. He's their defensive coordinator. For the Eagles, the timing kind of worked out for them because we're in a press conference about everything that went wrong and why the head coach is still here and firing coordinators. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Vic Fangio is coming.
No, nobody, Howie and Nick didn't. Howie, it would have been up to Howie or Nick to confirm it, and they didn't. They said there's plenty of good candidates. They weren't ready to confirm anything because they hadn't been prepped to do so, I guess. But yeah, and it's kind of interesting how the timing worked out this year, and last year it didn't. I mean, he probably would have been the D coordinator if there was an opening before he was hired by the Dolphins. Gannon obviously didn't officially go to the Cards until after the Super Bowl, though he was already working for him.
Yeah, it would have been nice to get a little heads up from old JG there.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much could have been different if Vic was in place. I mean, who knows? Who knows what would have been different? Things certainly, I would think, would have been better, but we'll find out this year just what he's all about. Look, he's a veteran. They obviously. All the candidates were veteran guys who've been coaching in the NFL for a long time, well-known guys who've had success, guys who've been around the NFL game for 30, 40 years. I mean, Ron Rivera was a rookie in the early 80s. So Vic is more experienced than anybody. I mean, he's been coaching for 40-plus years, a bunch of different teams, had success pretty much almost everywhere he's been. And it's interesting how quickly it fell apart in Miami. They kind of collapsed, not like our collapse. Wasn't as dramatic, but Eagles know how to collapse. When they collapse,
no one out collapses the Eagles.
No, they can out collapse your butt any day of the week. But
yeah, I will say I thought watching Miami this year, they had a pretty good defense for a lot of the year. And then by the end of the year, they were really banged up.
Yeah,
I mean they were without some top players. And look, Fangio's a good coach.
He's a good coach.
He's a good coach. And even if you're not a fan of that system, if you're going to run it, you might as well run it with the guy who came up with it.
That's
instead
true.
of guys who are trying to figure out
trying to
what
emulate
he's doing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
which is what they've done really the last two coordinators. Jonathan Gannon, when he came here, everyone was like, oh, it's going to be a Mike Zimmer principles. And it wasn't. It was like, you're going to run a lot of Fangio. It's going to be a ton of too high, all those staples. And then obviously decide they really went to that well.
Not well.
Not well.
They went to the well, not well. What system was Matt running? Patricia. Was he running a system?
Matt's system was Prey.
It was the Frankenstein system. No, Prey. Yeah. Remember that headline in I think it was the New York Daily News when Neil O'Donnell got hurt and he was a Jets quarterback. They didn't have a good backup, and the headline was kneel down and pray.
Oh, that's good.
It's a great headline. Kneel down and pray. But look, I like the hire, and I know a lot of fans are disappointed because of the way he traditionally coaches, but he's a good coach, and ultimately it's going to come down to personnel. I don't know if there's a coach with what they had at the end of the year on defense. I don't know if there's a defensive coach out there who could have had great success with that group.
Possible. And it's even the good players I had weren't good by the end of the year.
Yeah. And some of that's coaching too.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the switch for the coordinator switch didn't help anybody. It hurt everybody. I think when we look back at the season, I think you said this the other day, like people were like, what happened? And look, they already had lost to the Niners and Cowboys, but I think that switch was the number one mover for the collapse because they couldn't play defense after that. Just couldn't. And, but yeah, it's going to come down to players. It's going to come down to having a veteran voice, a guy who's confident in his scheme, who's able to explain it and deliver it and install it clearly. We know he can do that. He's kind of like, when you think about their defensive coordinators over the years, I mean, I guess he's like the most veteran type guy they've had since Jim Johnson.
Yeah. And that's an interesting parallel because and we're going to get into the structure of the coaching staff in a little bit, but in order for this structure to work, you kind of need coordinators that can run what they do, but might not leave. And like, that was the beautiful thing about Jim Johnson is that like he was here and he was the defensive coordinator and he wasn't leaving, which I don't know how long Vic wants to do this.
Yeah. He's 65.
He's 65. So like you might not have like a ton of years with him, depending on when he wants to walk away, but he's not getting a head coaching job, right? Like I don't think there's anything he can do to get another head coaching job. So he's your DC and that's the nice thing. It's like, it's not Jonathan Gannon who you're going to lose again.
Yeah. It's interesting. Jim Johnson had a couple of interviews early on when he was here. He really wanted a shot at it. And people were like, oh, he wants to be a defensive coach. No, he wanted to be a head coach, but he never got those opportunities. But yeah, I think, and look, it's a double-edged sword because are you going to be looking for another defensive coordinator in a year, in 2 years? I mean, we'll see.
Maybe, but you might have been doing that anyway if you got a good young candidate.
Yeah, that's true. But I think I like the hire. I think it's, I think his scheme is sound, and I think that's been proven. And if Howie can get him the players to play it, then I think they'll be okay.
Well, that's the thing. I just envision Vic's first meeting in that building, going into Howie's office, putting on tape and being like, you said Zach Cunningham was good? What are you talking? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that was one of the things that Howie kind of blurted out in the presser. He was asked about the linebacker position, and he's like, well, Nakobe, we still think really highly of Nakobe, and
which is fine.
Which is fine. But Nakobe's 22. Zach Cunningham's 29 and did not play well.
He was okay. Like, he was fine early in the year.
He was fine early in the year, and he really dropped off like everyone else. Howie's like very defensive. It was like, Zach Cunningham had a good year. Like,
but if I'm Vic, I'm walking in there and be like, linebacker and safety, figure it out.
Yeah.
These positions are important in my defense. We know you build up front, but like, you can't leave the cover bear for me.
The cover, how they said the cover bear. Howie actually said,
you can't leave the cover bare either. Yeah.
Howie actually said the cupboard is hardly bare. That was actually
at some positions it is.
It is bare, and
maybe not overall, but
I mean, it's safety. My goodness, especially with Sidney out, maybe a month into the
season.
Reed Blankenship, who did not play well the second half of the season. That's a theme here. Yeah. Nobody played well the second half of the season. You don't have anyone else. And look, you have free agency, you have a draft, and we'll see what they come up with. But if you go into the offseason thinking we're okay at linebacker or we're okay at safety, you're in trouble.
And you're bringing in a coach who, look, Vic is a grizzly old defensive coordinator. He's going to want what he wants. Now, the good thing here is like he's been in the building already, so he has some pre-existing relationships. I think that matters.
Sure.
Because we get the sense that there were some personality conflicts in Miami, and that there have been those with him in the past, which I don't think is a bad thing,
right?
Especially in a defensive coordinator, but it's something you have to be mindful of. And at least that he's been in the building, he's worked with these guys, and I think that helps him kind of hit the ground running a little bit.
I don't think there's any question about it. And it was kind of a funny deal in 2022. I mean, I think we saw him at training camp a couple times, but nobody really knew he was working for the team as a consultant until the middle of the season, until like October. It came out. Somebody tweeted, was it Garofalo?
Well, I think it was for the playoff run specifically.
No, we learned, I thought in the fall, like earlier in the fall, that he had a consultant role, I think. But I forgot the timing doesn't really matter, but it was kind of, they were keeping it a secret is the point.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't tell anybody, which is just weird.
Yeah, I remember seeing him at training camp.
Yeah. So we knew. But I think just, and this isn't a knock on Howie, but Howie's a very strong personality. And I think you need to be able to be in that building as a coordinator. You need to be able to navigate the coach and Howie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to be able to know how to work with them. And
Howie more than the coach, maybe.
Howie more than the coach, most likely. Yeah, because he might not even talk to the coach. We don't really know what the coach is going to do, but that's another, that we'll get to that. But I think Vic he's been with so many teams. He's dealt with so many GMs and owners and front office people. I think a guy like that knows how to navigate all that stuff and do his job. Look, if they have a bad defense next year, then they have a lot of bigger questions to answer, because I think he's a really solid guy.
They have a bad defense next year. This whole thing's probably going to get blown up.
Probably, yeah.
Phillies fan, Vic Fangio.
Oh yeah. Well, Vic
Huge Phillies fan.
Vic was on Jim Mora's staff with the Stars. The first team I ever covered in the God, like 83, 84, 85. He was I guess he was DC for the Philly Stars, who became the Baltimore Stars. That was a really fun team, and they had great defenses. There were 9 guys on the Philly Stars who were actually NFL Pro Bowlers, either before or after they were with the Stars. They had some really good players, and they were probably better than the Eagles at that point. Eagles were not good. But he knows the city. I mean, he coached here I think he coached with the Stars for 3 years, I believe 83 to 85. So he's
from around here, East Stroudsburg.
Yeah. You ever been to East Stroudsburg much?
I have not. Yeah.
That's a great little town.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of East Stroudsburg. It's a great little downtown. There's a good theater there. They have concerts. And we used to go camping and hiking at the Delaware Water Gap. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the long day of hiking and kayaking and everything, we would go. There was a Howard Johnson's in East Stroudsburg. We'd go to Howard Johnson's.
Known for the Howard Johnsons.
I'm sorry?
They were known for it.
They were.
Yeah.
Hojo's was
yeah.
And we'd go get milkshakes at Hojo's and go back to our campsite. That was always a good day. But in any case, you know who else went to East Stroudsburg?
No.
I think Mike Reichenbach did. The linebacker, the Eagles middle linebacker in the 80s. I'm gonna look that up. I think he went to East Stroudsburg.
People were wondering.
Yeah, he went to East Stroudsburg. He did. Man, how did I know that? Mike Lush went there too. Mike Lush was a safety on those Stars teams.
Who else went to East Stroudsburg?
Laura Mason, the runner, the great marathoner.
Who else?
Jim Lambert from Star Ledger or Mile Split now.
Mm-hmm. Who else? We'll just do this the whole show.
I don't know. Is there somebody you're thinking of?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I just came up with 4 good names.
Yeah, I didn't care about any of them. I was just playing along.
Well, it's interesting that Mike Lush was a safety on the Stars team and his coordinator was Vic Fangio. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles need safeties.
Little pipeline there.
Mike Lush
couldn't be any worse than some of the play I saw this year.
Oh, he'd probably be their best safety right now. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Do you have any other thoughts on Vic before we move on?
No. I hope we get to talk to him in the next little period of time.
Yeah, curious to see what kind of staff he wants. And that was one thing Sirianni brought up. He was asked about the position coaches and basically said, like, we'll see, because we're bringing in new coordinators and they might want their own guys. But we have some coaches here that we like, and we got to see if they can work with. The only guy who seems safe is Kevin Patullo, who we mentioned like 5 times.
Yeah. And I would think, I mean, you never know. I would think Stoutland, if he wants to be here,
You would think so.
would
Yeah,
be here.
You would hope so.
You think Vic, I'm sure Vic knows Stout somehow. They're both football lifers. But it is interesting because, I mean, are there any defensive coaches you would want to keep?
Me?
Yeah.
Jeremiah Washburn. I know they didn't play well down the stretch, but
you can get by.
You don't need him.
You don't need him. I mean,
I think Nick will want to keep DK McDonald.
He's a big fan of DK.
They've known each other forever.
Yeah.
IUP. So, but I have a hard time imagining Vic Fangio doesn't have a defensive backs coach he wants.
Yeah, and
you could keep DK on staff and demote him, but that's a tough look too.
Yeah, or you could do a thing where there's a secondary coach and a cornerbacks coach or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll be an interesting test because, like you said, I mean, we know how he feels about DK, but we also know they need some fresh blood in that defensive
How
staff.
Nick feels about DK.
What did I say?
Well, you said how he, but it sounded like how we.
Oh, yeah, how Nick feels about DK. I mean, he would talk about him back when he was he quality control for at first or assistant, whatever.
He was assistant DBs.
Assistant
under
DBs.
Denard, yeah.
So that'll be an interesting text because if I'm Vic Fangio, I don't want any of these guys.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anyone on defense you have to save.
Yeah.
Like DJ Elliott, the 1 year at linebackers coach. If I'm DJ Elliott, I'm going, what the heck happened? Like you gave me Nick Morrow and now I'm gone. Yeah. But that's life.
That's the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the linebacker play is really a reflection on him.
I don't either.
But this is how the NFL works.
All right. Well, let's hope we get to talk to Vic Fangio at some point before training camp. I would like to talk to him. There are a lot of questions
before. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm kind of wondering how he feels about the way things went down with Sean Desai, who worked under him. I don't know if they have a close relationship, but if they do, I can't imagine he was happy to see Sean become the sacrificial lamb for the defense this year.
Yeah. That's certainly true. I mean, there's so many.
It's obviously not stopping him from taking the job.
Yeah. But... Yeah. And, I mean, it happens so fast. I mean, the same tweet that said he and the Dolphins had agreed to mutually part ways said he was
coming here.
He was coming here.
Yeah.
So this was in the works one way or the other.
This was in the works since last year when they couldn't get him and they still tried to get him even after he wouldn't step away from the Dolphins.
Right. But like, what's the dynamic? At what point, like, you can't talk to him when he's under contract unless the Dolphins give you permission. Like, hey, what's going on with him? Are you going to keep him? Well, we don't think so, but we haven't announced it yet. Well, can we talk to him? Can we hire him? Mm-hmm. If you guys, like, when you guys cut ties with him, like, I'm really curious.
They can just pass along that pick from the Cardinals to the Dolphins if they tampered.
Yeah. So that's Gannon's pick goes for Fangio. So that would be poetic. It's an interesting dynamic in a lot of ways. Yeah.
All right, let's get into the press conference. It was about 35 minutes, which was longer than I was expecting. That was a pleasant surprise.
I expected 4 minutes.
I think the biggest takeaway for me, at least from the press conference, is that's what I want to talk about first, is the new offensive coordinator and the structure of the coaching staff. I expected Nick Sirianni to get in there and say, we're going to find an offensive coordinator who can help me with my vision and our offense, which is my offense, because for the first 3 years of his time in Philly, Nick has at every turn been like, it's my offense. Even last year when Brian Johnson was under fire, Nick said, whoa. I'm the one who should be getting the criticism. Brian's calling plays. It's my offense. He didn't call it his offense once.
Not once.
On Wednesday, it became the Philadelphia Eagles offense. It became this new offensive coordinator we're hiring. Oh, yeah, he's going to call plays. He's going to coach the quarterbacks. He's going to bring in his scheme to run here. I was shocked to hear it.
Yeah, so was I. And I think, so if it doesn't work, Nick can say, not my offense. It's his offense.
Well, I thought there were 2 routes this was going to go.
Yeah.
It was either going to be something like this, like for Nick to keep his job. Because the third option was always, well, guess what? You're gone.
Yeah.
So the first option was kind of what Jeffrey did with Chip Kelly. Put it all on you, right? It was obviously a little different because Chip was personnel control. This would have been put it all on Nick. This is your offense. Double down on it. We'll give you anything you want, any coach you want, but you got to figure out how to fix it. And if you don't, you're fired. That was an option. And I thought that was a very possible option. And the other option was guess what, Nick? We've seen this offense. This offense stinks. You can't run it the way you're running it. We need someone else to bring in fresh ideas, which is what Nick said about 1,000 times during that press conference. And I'm sure those were not his words.
Yeah.
And that's the option he chose because he wanted to keep his job.
Yeah. And to me,
well, let me rephrase that. His options were, my guess is, do this or see it.
Yeah. And we just talked about that like last week about how he's going to take the road that saves his job, because why wouldn't you?
Well, the pride.
Yeah, but he's not Doug. I just think they're so different.
I agree, but that would be the reason. We saw that with Doug. He was hell bent on keeping Press Taylor, and Jeffrey said, "Well, guess what? That's not good enough. You're gone."
Right. And I mean, that's why I said I thought he was going to stay, because I just think he knows how to play that game. I don't want to say better than Doug, because Doug knew exactly what he was doing and what the upshot was going to be. I don't think Nick. I mean, Doug was going to get a head coaching job. I don't think Nick is or would have.
I agree with that.
Doug won a Super Bowl, and you know what? Maybe it's not that huge.
Well, he had to wait a year too, though, to get back in the coaching.
Yeah, but I think he needed that year. I think he understood that.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, but my point is, I think if you look, what was the biggest problem with the offense last year for me was the disconnect between Nick and Brian and Jalen. It's like it can't work with a play caller calling plays from another guy's scheme, and the guy that's paying the price is the quarterback. You know, it was just such an untenable situation. It wasn't Brian's offense, and I'm not exonerating him. I don't think he did a great job.
It wasn't Shane's offense either, for the sake of fairness.
But Shane was brilliant, and Shane, for whatever reason, he was able to work through that, work around it, and have incredible success. I think also Shane probably took a little more ownership than Brian, with his play calling and his philosophy. I don't think he ever would have hesitated to go against what Nick wanted to do philosophically in a certain situation. I think he was calling what he wanted to call, where Brian, I think, was calling plays that he thought Nick would want to call, or in a style that Nick would want. I just think it was an unworkable thing, because and Jalen paid the price. So I think that if you eliminate that whole Nick side of it, and you just have, look, this is my offense, this is my quarterback, let's figure this out, it's just a lot more workable situation. It just means, what does Nick do? But that's a question that we'll get to. But I think it could work better, more like 2021, if you have an offensive coordinator who has that autonomy. Why are we doing this? Well, I don't know. It's not my offense. Why are we doing this? Because this, and this. So I think that's big.
Yeah. And Nick basically admitted that Brian Johnson was the fall guy. You know, it's like, you feel bad for Brian. I know that he's a coach and this is the coach's life, but Nick said all season, the offense is my fault. And then when push comes to shove, it's like, well, guess what? You're not firing me. You're not getting rid of the quarterback. Someone's got to go. We need fresh ideas. Brian Johnson, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I think Brian Johnson, I'm very curious to follow his career after this. He apparently has an interview scheduled for the Browns head coach or offensive coordinator job. He got a couple of head coaching interviews this offseason. And I couldn't help but picture Brian watching that press conference on Wednesday when Nick's talking about fresh ideas and being like, wait a second, I had fresh ideas. And I don't know if he did. I don't know if he did, but
I had fresh ideas, and you
didn't listen to them.
You wouldn't listen
until your job was on the line.
Right.
That's the only thing I could picture was Brian Johnson being like, wait a second, why didn't you listen to my ideas? Because you watched that Florida offense. I know it wasn't all his offense, but it looked a lot different than what we saw with the Eagles last year.
That's for darn sure.
So curious to follow his career, because I don't think he's a bad coach.
Yeah, I think I wrote that the other day. He's not a bad coach, but he was the wrong coach.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I think he'll do well. I really do.
I do too.
If he has the right people.
That's going to bug the heck out of this city for a long time if he ends up being a good coach somewhere.
Yeah.
You had a 35-year-old up-and-coming coach that you might not have utilized correctly.
Didn't. I mean, we know he didn't.
Well, hey, I don't know how much he has to offer. I think there's something there because the other NFL teams certainly think there is.
Yeah, and I think that tells you, what the league thinks of Brian Johnson. I mean, he's going to get a job.
Yeah. We'll see if it's an OC or QB's coach.
Yeah. I mean, other guys had head starts, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of head coaches to be named and some OCs to be named.
Yeah. And this offensive coordinator position in Philly is such a big deal. Like now it's imperative that they find the right guy.
Yeah.
And the only two candidates we know about as we record this podcast are Cliff Kingsbury and Gerard Johnson.
Yeah. And it's not a lot to go on, but they were both guys. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury comes from the Mike Leach school, throw every down. And Gerard Johnson, when he was a college quarterback, threw like the 5th most passes in the BCS. So they're both coming from, that let's just say whoever it is, the run the ball crowd is not going to be happy. And this is what Jeff Lurie wants.
Yeah. And look, like Gerard Johnson has a more varied background.
Yeah, he does.
So there are a lot of things I really like about Gerard Johnson.
Yeah.
But the problem is that he hasn't really been coaching all that long. He's had this kind of rapid rise.
Yeah.
Just 1 year as the quarterback's coach in Houston under an offensive coordinator who's getting head coaching looks because he was so dynamic as a play caller.
I think Gerard Johnson's also up for that Browns OC job.
Okay.
He interviewed there.
But like I like the idea of that. I'm curious to see, and I don't think this is like Nick's hire anymore. Like I think this is very clearly the front office and ownership pulling the strings at this point. If anyone who had the theories about this front office and ownership group wanting a puppet head coach got a big boost yesterday.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't blame the front office. I mean, because it didn't go well the last time around. I mean, you look at all the defensive coordinator candidates. Vic has been here. Lurie knows him. Ron Rivera has been here. Lurie knows him. Leslie Frazier wasn't officially a candidate. I mean, Mike Caldwell played here and coached here. Lurie knows him. I mean, they're going to both be people Lurie's comfortable with, and Howie.
Now, if you're Nick and you're trying to push a candidate, would you rather have a more veteran candidate? Because that's the thing. It's like Cliff Kingsbury, say what you want about him, and people can say plenty because it did not end well for him in Arizona, but he has experience. He's been a play caller in the NFL. Do you think it's going to be someone who has that experience, or do you think they'd be willing to go a Gerard Johnson route, kind of hoping and trying to find the next great play caller?
I don't know. It's a great question. I mean, they've both worked with young quarterbacks. I mean, Kingsbury coached Kyler Murray to 2 Pro Bowls and coached Patrick Mahomes in college. Yeah. Obviously, Gerard Johnson coached the best rookie quarterback in the league ever, maybe this year. So I think that's going to be, I think they want a guy. I think this is like a Jalen job. I mean, this is like, who's going to get the most out of Jalen? I just want to come down.
And I don't think that's a bad
I don't either.
Tactic.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But I think that's got to be priority number 1. So play calling is a piece of that, but I don't think it's a coincidence that both these guys are former quarterbacks who, and so is Brian Johnson, by the way, but former quarterbacks who've worked with young quarterbacks and had success with them.
Yeah, I like the Gerard Johnson idea.
Yeah.
I think there's something there.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how many candidates we end up hearing about. I think this is a job. And this was another question I've gotten posed to me. The way they're talking about this candidate is going to do this, they're going to do this, they're going to be this. Some people took that as they already have a specific guy in mind for that job. And I don't know if that's the case. I hope that's not the case, because I really think this should be an expansive search. They should interview a lot of candidates, get a lot of ideas flowing through, even if you're not hiring that guy.
Yeah.
I think it should be one of those searches.
Yeah, and we know they like to do that. I mean, they'll bring in guys just to,
except when Vic Fangio is available.
Yeah. Well, they already talked to a couple, but yeah, I mean, they'll bring in guys just to bend their ear. Like, what do you like? What do you believe in? I mean, I remember, gosh, Lori talking about that years ago. Like, well, you want to just get to know everybody in the league, and it's a great way to do it. And who knows, maybe in 5 years we need this. And like, oh, he's available. We talk to him. It's smart.
Yeah. And it's like, not only do you get the FaceTime, but hey, you worked with Shanahan for 5 years or whatever. Let's see what you had to say about that offense. And,
yeah.
I think there's value in that.
Yeah. You have no chance to get the job, but tell us everything you know about this offense.
Yeah. I mean, you probably don't tell them they have no chance.
No, I was like in quotes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll get into every other thing they talked about in the press conference.
Not everything.
And they didn't talk about it. We can talk about it. We can kind of fill in some of the cracks. And we'll start off with Nick as a CEO coach after the break.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. So, Rube, during this press conference, we see the report about Vic Fangio. Nick's up there saying the next offensive coordinator, he's going to run the offense. He's going to be in charge of the offense. And I think a lot of us were thinking it. I give credit to Tim McManus of ESPN for asking the question. It's a tough question, but he asked it with some tact, and I thought it was well put. But basically, like, Nick, if this guy's running the defense, this guy's running the offense, what's your role?
What do you do?
Yeah. Well, it's the office space. Well, what would you say you do here? And Office Space? No.
Office Space?
Yeah. Movie?
No.
Okay.
I do want to say, I think Tim is as good as anybody at asking difficult questions and making them sound like
you can frame a question
easy.
Man, you can frame a question, and it was well put.
You want to say, like, Nick, what the hell do you do?
Yeah,
but you can't really ask it that way.
There were other people who would have asked it like
true.
So Nick's first answer was, "I'm a head coach." All right, but and then he gets into it. And look, I know that some people think he didn't help himself with the answer and it was pretty funny when he started talking about the core values. Well, maybe we'll move some around. We'll reorganize the core values.
Accountability is moving down from 2 to 3. I have to redo that chart in the bubble.
He kind of joked. Well, I don't know if he joked. He said he was going to be in more defensive meetings, which I'm sure Vic Fangio is like, no, get the heck out of my meetings, Nick. I will say this. I think the CEO model of a head coach is a totally viable option.
Absolutely.
I think it is really tough to explain that job description.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think 2022 shows what's possible when you have that. I mean, and look, I think he's going to have less offensive say, it was his offense since 2022. But they went to the Super Bowl with him basically being a CEO coach, essentially, maybe not to the extent that he will be. I do think there are things that a head coach does, and I think it's an important job. It's a good thing if you have the right coordinators in place who can have autonomy.
Yeah, and like the two best examples in the league right now are John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. Now you can say, well, Nick's not John Harbaugh and he's not Mike Tomlin. Fair. Like, he hasn't had the sustained success as those guys have had, but they had to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tomlin's only been to the one Super Bowl, right? He's only been to one. Harbaugh's been to. Anyway, I think there is value in that. I think the question took him by surprise. It's something I was surprised he wasn't prepped for, because the whole press conference was kind of leading to that question. I mean, Tomlin has been the two. He has been a 2. Yeah, he's 1-1. But that's not even the point. I think it's a workable model if you have the right coordinators. It's a disaster if you have the wrong ones. And I do think Nick does have some strengths. We'll see. I mean, we'll see this year. He didn't this past year, certainly.
Yeah, and that's the bit of the worry to me, is if you're going to have this model, the things that then the head coach, like, he has to oversee everything. He has to build the right culture, which, like, I think he's done that at times. He's been here, but that culture certainly didn't save them
right
in the stretch run this year. And it seemed like there were some interpersonal problems on this team. And that gets exacerbated by losing, but that's where you got to hope that you can kind of plug some of those holes and stop the bleeding. And they weren't able to do that. Maybe with coordinators he trusts on both sides of the ball, he'll have more freedom to do that.
Yeah.
That's the hope there. And the other thing is you have to be good on game day. And Nick hasn't been very good on game day. And that's a worry because he hasn't been calling plays on game day anyway. So I don't know if we're going to see that much of a bump there.
You're talking about clock management.
In-game decision-making.
Yeah.
All the elements of a coach on game day, I don't think he's been particularly good at.
I wonder if, like, I mean, when they had a 4th and 3 at the 50, Nick was making that call, even though Brian Johnson was calling the play. New offensive coordinators can decide whether to go for it on 4th down. Is that fair to assume?
No.
You think that's still Nick?
That has to be the head coach. That can't be the offensive coordinator. He'll go for it every time.
I mean, it's the right thing to do. I mean, Nick's just, I just think, because as a play caller, you're setting up that 4th down. You're setting up, it's like.
No, I mean, that's where you have to have conversations throughout a series, before a series. Yeah. But no, you can't have the offensive coordinator deciding that.
Well, I just think that.
Not if there's a head coach who's supposed to make that decision.
If you're the play caller, you're calling plays with the whole drive in mind.
Yeah, that's why you have conversations. You can't.
Well, that's my question: is if Nick's seeding this, at what how much autonomy does the OC have?
It stops when he gets to decide if he's going up for it on 4th
okay.
down.
All right. Well, I just think the offensive coordinator, if this is going to be the model, has to at least have some pretty big say in that. Has to have a voice in it.
It has a voice. I don't think he has a say in it.
Okay.
I think that's why you have the head coach. That's supposed to be his job on game day. If this is the model they're going after, he has to decide those in-game situations that Nick says he pours over throughout the week.
He does. They have meetings to talk about every scenario.
And with all that work, they still weren't very good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this all works or doesn't work.
And I will say, like, I think in Philly, we have a good sense of Nick, the person. I think outside of Philly, people think he's like this brash, cocky, rubs people the wrong way. And he can be that, but like he really does make an effort to bond with the players. The players seem to like him. And that stuff, as hokey as it sounds, it does matter when you're trying to build a culture.
There's no question. And that's what he's really good at. I mean, the players like him. The whole connection thing is just, it's real. And I mean, through the whole collapse this year, they played hard.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the problem. So I do think that there is something to be said for Nick Sirianni, the head coach. We'll see if it's enough.
Yeah. And Howie tried to talk up his stats, and it was really funny because he cited Nick's record before the slide, which is like, all right. But the slide happened.
He was 33-11.
That was so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like saying, well, we were 10-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who the heck cares at that point? But I do think there's something to be said about seeing the big picture and saying, well, this guy has been successful. There are things he does well.
Yeah.
Now, I think that slide, they would have been justified if they fired him.
Yeah.
And even though they don't want to admit they thought about it, they clearly, that was a possibility, right? So,
and that's why the press conference wasn't until yesterday, not because it was a snow day on Friday,
snowy,
and there was bad traffic on the Schuylkill.
But by the way, I told you this. I had a rock hit my windshield yesterday.
Yeah,
very annoying. A little chip in the wind. I got to get it fixed. That's all.
They have better tools to do that than they used to. Somebody said that yesterday.
To me?
Yeah, we were walking down to the interview. It's easier to fix a windshield than it used to be.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, Elliot said that. That was Elliot's take.
That was Elliot's take yesterday.
Speaking of traffic, it took me an hour and a half to get here on 95 this morning. 95, when it rains or it's foggy.
Yeah.
People just, I'm going to drive 10 miles an hour to work.
Tough.
It was so bad. My GPS said, get off 95.
GPS said, forget it.
I actually got off at Academy. That's how far north I got off. And I wended down. I went down to State Street around the Tacony Palmyra Bridge, and then got back up on 95, like by Fishtown. It was a nightmare.
Hmm.
No accidents, no construction. Just it's raining out. I'm going to drive 12 miles an hour. But anyway, that's my rant for the day.
Okay.
Where were we?
Normally, I remember where we were.
We were
talking, I don't know, CEOs and coaches.
I mean, do you think it's going to work? I mean, a lot depends on the OC.
Yeah, it's tough to say it's going to work until we see the full picture. We don't have nearly enough yet. I think the OC hire matters, and then I think Howie's offseason matters, because when Howie has a good offseason, when Howie has a good season, the team has a good season.
Yeah,
which was an objectively funny thing to say.
Yeah, it was. I think that was my question. Maybe
That's how we started this answer.
Yeah,
that was how we take accountability. When I'm great, we're great.
Howie's an interesting guy.
Howie is a powerful guy.
Sometimes I just like asking him questions just to see how he'll answer them. But he didn't have a good year. I don't think he had a good year.
I agree. He was asked about the priority they placed on the defensive line relative to the output they got.
That was a good question.
It was a good question.
Was that EJ, I believe?
That was Bo, I believe.
Okay.
A good question, but it's like he then turned it to talk about the linebackers, because he knows that's the
right.
How he knows what people are saying.
Oh yeah.
And he knows it's not even, I don't want to call it a narrative, because narrative now has a connotation. It's like that's what happened. Like,
it's truth.
It's true. They prioritize certain positions over others, and I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but they took it too far this year. And he talked about the faith they had in the Kobe Dean, which, like, they should have faith in the Kobe Dean. They drafted him in the third round. That is a significant resource from their perspective to put into a linebacker. The problem and the miscalculation they made was they put all their eggs in the Kobe Dean basket with no reason to really believe in him doing it for a full season. They didn't make the only other move they made was to sign Nicholas Morrow.
Yeah.
Until the summer.
Yeah.
And then they panicked and signed Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham, who ended up being their best linebacker, but was not good, Howie.
And Miles Jack ended up being the Steelers' best linebacker. Maybe not, but
maybe not.
Zach Cunningham did not play well. I do think he had a good first month or so, first 6 weeks. Like, we're saying that about everybody.
I agree he was their best linebacker.
Yeah.
And it was a very low bar.
Low bar.
And even, like, I don't want to hit the Christian Ellis thing again, but, like, they devalued the position enough that they kept Albert Aquabenum on the roster instead of Christian Ellis.
That was a huge miscalculation. And not that Christian Ellis is a great player, but he's a functional linebacker.
And under contract, or he would have been under contract.
Yeah. That was
like, they have to rebuild that position.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of positions they got to rebuild. But fortunately, the personnel on the offensive side is pretty solid, and most of those guys are under contract. So this offseason is going to be about the secondary and linebacker.
Yeah. Anything else? Nick was asked about Sean Desai and if he regretted, and I asked him this during the season when things were going to crap, if he regretted it. And he won't say he regrets it. He's not wired to say that. He says, well, I thought I made the right decision at the time, which of course you did, because you made the decision.
Yeah.
We all know you thought you made the right decision at the time.
I think he all but said, yeah, it was a disaster. Yeah, it was a mistake, but he can't say that.
Why not?
I don't know. Too proud.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, he can't say that. Well, why not? Why can't you say that? We all know it.
And he said, Matt was in a really tough position.
Sure.
Yeah. He all but said it, but he won't say it. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's coach speak, and everyone just accepts it. Well, he can't say that. Well, why not?
He's very aware of not wanting to hurt feelings,
Except Sean Desai can go pound sand, apparently. Everyone else is, Matt Patricia had a tough time. Brian Johnson, Brian's a good coach. He didn't say one word about that, about Sean Desai.
He didn't say anything positive about him?
Hasn't said anything positive about Sean Desai except for, he stuck around.
He's a loyal guy. Sean Desai was, every good moment they had on defense this year, Sean Desai was the coordinator.
There weren't a ton, but yeah.
Well, there were several. There were several.
Yeah.
I mean, Tampa, Rams, Vikings, second half of the Chiefs game, second half of the Cowboys game, Dolphins game. There were.
Yeah. Someone who works here had a good idea for a question. I don't want to say who it was because I don't know if they. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Someone said they should have just been asked, like, a question should have been not said to either Nick or Howie and just asked about the decision to demote Sean Desai and see who answered it. Because what did you make of that? Howie said, Howie was asked about his involvement in that decision. He said, Nick came to me, and I'm paraphrasing, Nick came to me, I already made up his mind, and I said, I'll support you, coach. We'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Buying that?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So you think if a question was asked about...
if that question was asked, they would have just looked at each other and smirked. They didn't do like their little inside jokes. I think
you can't do that.
They had the right sense of gravitas.
Mm-hmm. I always wonder about that too, like going into a press conference like that. We know they're coached about what questions might be coming, how to answer those questions.
What tone to have.
That's what I'm wondering. Is like, are they coached on the tone?
I mean, they're not stupid. I think they understand that, going 1-6 and getting blown out in the playoffs is not something you joke about.
Yeah, outside of what they said, which like you can say they didn't say this or they didn't say that, they weren't good enough here. But like, I thought they hit the right tone.
Yeah, because
there's a fine line to hit there. Because on one hand, you can't be like defiant. You just stunk, like right. Like you can't be defiant and just. They did a little bit of like, our record's been really good, which I think is fine, but they weren't overly defiant about it. But you also can't show up with your tail between your legs and not exude confidence because you got to fix it.
Yeah,
like, you two are up there to fix it, and you can't just be sad. Like I thought Howie looked like someone shot his puppy last year after the Super Bowl loss. He's just like dejected.
Yeah.
Which I kind of get in that moment, but you have to exude some confidence up there. It's a performance at this point. Press conferences are no longer for the press. They're for the mass.
Yeah, it's true. I thought Howie overdid it last year. I remember thinking that it's a little performative here.
Of course it was.
He just wants everyone to know how much he's hurting. But I thought their tone was appropriate yesterday, as far as, showing that they believe in what they're doing and they believe that they have the ability to turn it around, but really showing that they understand how bad it really was.
What'd you make of fortune teller Howie Roseman? Said after the Super Bowl, he thought, man, we're gonna lose a lot of people. We're gonna face a tougher schedule. I think there's truth in that. And I remember writing a column after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
People were not happy with me, but I said the Eagles just blew the best chance they're ever going to have to win a Super Bowl.
I remember that.
Like everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's not going to line up like this again.
Right.
And I think
injury schedule.
Yeah.
And the Jalen contract, which kind of hurts your ability to sign everyone you want.
Sure. Just like the talent on the roster.
Well, that hadn't happened yet, but it was going to.
Obviously, it was going to happen. I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think it was understandable that the team would take a step back. The way it happened was not as predictable.
Yeah. I think if they had started out like 6-4 and then got to like 7-5 and then like, 9-6 and then, 11-6.
Yeah. All of these conversations are very different.
Yeah. But to be 10-1, and that's what makes this offseason so tricky is everything we're talking about is kind of condensed into the last 7 weeks. And so you're making changes to a team that was 10-1. It's just a unique situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't make the mistake of saying, well, for 12 weeks we were the best team in the league.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And I think they understand that.
There were some questions about Jalen Hurts. One was about like how do you approach him about the Brian Johnson thing, which, to be fair, like we know that he's known Brian Johnson for a long time. I think everyone's kind of guilty of building up that relationship a little too much.
Yeah.
Like just because like I know a lot of people I knew when I was 4 years old and I'm not super close to them. right? Like
You still know people from when you were 4?
sure, like my parents' friends or
Okay.
coworkers or whatever.
I don't think I know anybody from when I was 4.
Well, that was Dickensian times.
I had a hard time making friends when I was 4. Those people don't like me anymore.
Yeah. You were throwing like rattles at them and stuff. I
Who's
guess you
your
were
oldest
rattles,
friend?
right? My oldest friend?
Yeah.
My best friend I literally grew up with.
Like going back to first grade, third grade?
Babies.
Really?
Like he grew up across the street from me. Like,
Really?
Like, yeah, we're basically family. So
Okay.
put up with me for this long.
Interesting. Is he an Eagles fan?
No, not super. Kind of.
So he doesn't just hit you with Eagles questions all the time?
My friends know not to do that. They give me a little separation from it.
Good. Okay. I don't think I have a friend going back like before college.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends like. This is not like I'm younger than you, obviously. So like there's no way to say that. That didn't sound awful. I'm sorry.
No, it's a fact.
Yeah, but like I think it's probably easier for me to have friends.
But when I was your age, I didn't have any friends
really?
from. Yeah. I just because we moved a lot.
Okay, so that's a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I was in Teaneck for 10 years. I think there's probably a couple of people on my Facebook page from high school, but it's not like I talked to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're off topic.
A little bit. Yeah. So Brian Johnson and the relationship with Jalen Hurts.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I think Jalen is like a lot of players. Like if the coach can help them win, be successful, get paid, win championships, they want that.
Yeah.
They don't want their best friend necessarily.
Right.
Now some players do, and those players are not wired right.
True. That's very true. And I think the most important thing about this hire is his relationship, not his personal relationship with Jalen, but can he get the most out of him? Mm-hmm. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And like you would hope that they did not include Jalen in the decision-making process, but that they filled him in on what they were doing.
Yeah.
I think he deserves that as the franchise quarterback.
Yeah. And I'm sure he was part. I think Nick even said he was part of those conversations.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to like give him too much power. He shouldn't be deciding who his offensive coordinator is, but you get feedback. And I think you have to at least listen to what he says, and then you have to keep him in the loop.
Yeah. And it sounds like they did that. And it was funny because Nick said, well, you have to, how did Jalen react? Well, you have to ask him that. He knows we're not going to talk to him until OTAs probably, right? Yeah. So.
And we're not asking how he felt. We're asking how he reacted.
Yeah. I'm guessing Jalen didn't kick and scream about it. I don't know Jalen very well, but knowing him like I do, he wants to play better, and he wants people around him who can get him there. And it wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from the press conference you want to talk about? Or was there anything that did not get addressed in the press conference that should have?
It was, I thought we covered a lot. I thought there were good questions for the most part. You could sit there and you could come up with stuff for 2 hours, but I thought we kind of hit on the most important things.
I'll tell you the one thing, and I tried to get another one in and I could not. It's tough in that setting. I don't know if there's a better solution, but it's just tough.
Yeah.
I felt like this was our last chance to really dive back into the collapse.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
And like, because I have a feeling that if we try to ask about the collapse anytime going forward, they're going to be asked in the past.
I think the way to ask it is like, how is it going to color your off season? Like when you're at the combine, how he,
but that was the one thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's how.
We want more answers about why the hell things went.
But what there
sideways.
was, I think what the answer would have been was it's never one thing.
Yeah,
it's a lot of things. We have to look at that. That's what the off season is all about. We're meeting about that now.
Mm-hmm. But to me, that was like the one thing. That I wish we would have gotten.
Yeah,
at least asked.
And that was going to be my second question. I didn't get a second question in. There were a lot of people there, and kind of everyone should get one question. Not everyone, but most people deserve one question. But their answers are, their answers are long, detailed, which is good. You want them to be thoughtful about it. So there's not a ton of 38 minutes. There was maybe 14 questions. I don't know.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I heard some, it was very brief, like from my drive from NovaCare over to the Wells Fargo Center yesterday. I turned on the radio. I wanted to get a pulse of what fans are saying just in that split moment. And I heard one fan on the radio. So maybe this is definitely not an accurate representation, but I have seen it like since then. on Twitter a little bit, or on X a little bit. Just fans saying they didn't really get any answers. It was all word salad. Some of it was, but I disagree with that notion.
Yeah.
We found out their plan to basically like change Nick's role,
Yeah.
to hire a new offensive coordinator to take charge of that side of the ball. Like that's significant. That's
Yes.
newsy.
Yeah.
That was not word salad.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we'll see how they implement it, and we'll see if that's all true. But to me, that was like, there was something there.
No question about it. And I was really curious if that's something that was like planned out. Like, hey, are we going to tell them what the new structure is going to be?
Yeah, I think so.
Because he doesn't just blurt that stuff out, right?
No, I think that was planned.
Yeah. I mean, we all walked out of there kind of, I can't believe he said that.
Because
maybe people didn't.
Nick has been humbled before. He did it in 21, handing over play calling.
Yeah.
But he has been very proud about being an offensive coach. He even said, this is why Jeffrey hired me.
Yeah.
Because of my offensive mind. So to be stripped of that power, at least to some extent, is pretty significant.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that it's to keep his job, which, hey, I try to survive too.
That's what I've been doing since I got here. I think we'll get answers about the collapse as we see what they do, personnel wise, coaching wise. I think what they do over the next couple months is going to tell us pretty much what they believe happened and why.
Yeah. That's probably true.
Probably more than anything they would have said.
We got anything else here?
No, I wish we got to talk to Howie more often.
I do too. Yesterday was the first time since Nick's been here, at least, though, that we had a dual press conference, and there were way more questions for the coach than the GM, which is like, that's why I'm excited to talk to Howie at the Combine this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Because normally it's about like the offseason plan, you couldn't do that this time. There's too much other stuff going on.
Yeah, and the only good thing about finishing season 1-6 is that you don't get the Howie Nick smirking, inside jokes, whispering back and forth and chuckling. We didn't get any of that.
It's tough. It's a tough look.
It's a tough look if you lost 6 of your last 7 games. So as long as they keep doing that, the press conference won't be annoying.
Yeah. I think fans would take the annoying press conferences.
Yeah, probably.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click that like button, subscribe there as well. We've gotten some new 5-star reviews. We appreciate that. I read them. I read the bad ones too. I don't appreciate them as much, but I understand. We try to get better.
Yeah.
We self-evaluate.
We need reps.
Yeah.
We have a quality control guy sitting right there.
All right. Take care, everyone. We'll
be back soon.
Yeah.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. More news is going to come down. We'll get into a schedule in the off season, but everyone take care. We'll talk to you soon. It's been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.